The Monaco Grand Prix is up next. I think this might be the most important race of the entire Formula One season so far. Not because Monaco is the best track, not because Monaco always produces incredible racing, but because this weekend could completely change the championship picture. And for the first time all year, I generally have no idea who's going to win because Monaco is about to answer a lot of questions and maybe create a few more. Let's start with Mercedes because this is the first race where Mercedes won't be able to rely on the advantage everyone has been talking about all season. For months, we've heard people debate whether Mercedes simply figured these regulations out better than everyone else, whether it was superior engineering, a better understanding of the rules, or just a package that happened to suit most of the circuits we've visited so far. Well, Monaco is the perfect test because if the field closes up this weekend, everything changes because Formula One is at its best when multiple teams can win. If Mercedes still dominates around Monaco, then maybe they really are the benchmark. But if Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, and Mercedes all end up separated by just a few tenths, then suddenly this championship becomes a lot more interesting. Now, normally I'd tell you whoever qualifies on the front row is probably going to win this race in Monaco. That's usually how it goes and works around here. Pole position is king. Saturday is often more important than Sunday, and we've seen that time and time again throughout Monaco's history. But this year, I'm actually not so sure because even if George Russell and Kimi Antonelli lock out the front row, I don't think they're guaranteed anything. We've seen all season that Mercedes can be vulnerable at the start, and Monaco's first corner could completely reshape the race because if Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton gets a better launch, which they usually do, that could be all that they need. Track position around Monaco is everything. You don't need to be the fastest car if nobody can get past you. And that's why strategy becomes so important. One perfectly timed pit stop, one safety car, one yellow flag during qualifying, any of those moments could completely change the outcome of the weekend. Monaco might be Ferrari's biggest opportunity of the season because once a Ferrari gets on track position around Monaco, good luck getting past them. We all know how difficult overtaking is around these Monaco streets. That's why qualifying this weekend might actually feel bigger than the race itself. One mistake in qualifying could ruin an entire weekend. One brush with the wall could send a championship contender to the back of the grid, and that's what makes Monaco so interesting. Every lap feels important, every corner feels important, every tiny mistake, you get punished. But there is one thing that makes me more optimistic than previous years, this year's cars. Because these are newer cars, smaller. They're more agile, and while I'm not expecting Monaco to suddenly become a track full of overtakes, I do think we could see more action than people expect. The drivers seem more comfortable attacking the circuit, the cars look more responsive through the slower sections, and if that translates into closer racing, this could end up being one of the most entertaining Monaco races we've had in years. Now, the thing I'm watching most isn't actually the battle at the front, it's the traffic, because Canada showed us something really interesting. The field spread was enormous if you didn't notice. At one point, we had drivers near the front lapping cars that were still running inside the top 5 positions. And that's crazy. Now we're talking that same grid and putting them on one of the smallest circuits. By smallest, I mean narrowest circuits in motorsports. That creates opportunities. It creates strategy and it creates unpredictability because one benchmarker at the wrong time could completely change the outcome of the race. A championship contender could lose several seconds. A driver chasing victory could suddenly inherit the lead. Monaco has always been a race of fine margins, and this year those margins feel even smaller. Imagine leading comfortably for 50 laps, then catching traffic exactly the wrong moment. Suddenly the driver behind is within DRS range, suddenly the pressure increases, and one tiny mistake becomes the difference between winning and finishing second. That's the kind of thing Monaco does better than most any other circuit. Now let's talk about Kimi Antonelli because every single weekend this guy gives us another reason to talk about him. He's leading the championship. He's won 4 races in a row and now he heads to one of the most challenging tracks in the world. This weekend might tell us more about Kimi than any race we've seen all season, because winning Monaco isn't just about speed. It's about patience, precision, confidence. It's about knowing exactly how much risk to take. One mistake and your car is over. One lock up and your weekend could be ruined. That's why Monaco has always been viewed as a true test of a driver's ability. Now, do I believe that? Who knows? I guess we'll find out this weekend. But anyways, if Kimi Antonelli performs well here, I think the rest of the grid is going to start realizing the championship battle is very real, because it's one thing to win races. It's another thing to entirely master Monaco. Then there's George Russell. I think Canada might have motivated him. George was dominant all weekend, and then he walked away with 0 points, as we all saw with that DNF. That's the kind of race that sticks with you forever. The kind of race that keeps you awake thinking about what could have been. So don't be surprised if George Russell arrives in Monaco with something to prove, because if he converts that frustration into performance, he could be incredibly dangerous this weekend. And let's not forget Max Verstappen, because every time people start counting Max out, he reminds everyone why he's a multiple time world champion. Red Bull looked stronger in Canada. Max looked more comfortable. And if Red Bull found something in that car, Monaco could become very interesting very quickly. We've seen Max produce incredible qualifying laps around the street circuits before. We've seen him thrive under pressure time and time again, and we've seen him take advantage whenever his rivals make mistakes. That's why writing him off would be a huge mistake. And along with Max, we have Oscar Piastri, a driver who always seems to be lurking near the front, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for a mistake from the drivers ahead. And Monaco is exactly the kind of race where patience can pay off. Then Ferrari, then Lewis. Lewis might be one of the biggest wild cards of the entire weekend, because if there's one thing Lewis knows how to do, it's maximize opportunities. Give Lewis a chance at track position around Monaco, and suddenly he's a serious threat. This is honestly one of the hardest Monaco races to predict in years for me, and that's exactly why I'm excited for it, because Formula One is at its best when we don't know what's going to happen, when there isn't an obvious winner, when every qualifying lap matters, when every strategy call matters. And Monaco gives us all that. Now, do I think we'll see incidents? Absolutely. Do I think we'll see safety cars? Probably. Do I think we'll see a few drivers find the Monaco barriers like the past? Almost certainly, especially with the amount of cars now on the grid, because Monaco has always demanded perfection, and Formula One drivers are constantly searching for the limit. Eventually someone finds it the hard way. We've seen world champions crash here. We've seen race leaders crash here. We've seen qualifying sessions completely transformed by a single mistake. That's why Monaco remains one of the most stressful weekends on the calendar. To some, it's more boring. The pressure never really goes away. So who is going to win? If I had to make a prediction about Monaco, I would say George Russell, but honestly, I don't feel confident about that prediction at all, because I could make an argument for Kimi Antonelli, for Charles Leclerc even, and even Oscar Piastri. And don't forget Max Verstappen, you can't count him out. And Lewis had more pace than Charles in Canada, so Lewis could come out on top as well. And that's what makes this race so exciting. For the first time in a while, I truly don't know who might come out on top. And that's a great thing for Formula One, I think. Because if Monaco delivers the kind of weekend I think it can, we might leave Sunday with a completely different championship picture than the one we have today. Let me know your Monaco winner prediction down below. And if you made it this far, it probably means you've enjoyed the content and the discussion. So don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel here at Podium Pit Lane to get more Formula One content. And remember, it's always a great day to be a Formula One fan.